Hey there, little buddies, and welcome to yet another edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, in which we'll be discussing the Starz original series, American Gods, episode 4, entitled Git Gone. How are you? That's a weird name, right?
Well, I would break it down, but I'd be breaking into my summon up in a tweet joke.
Okay, we'll get there.
I'm gonna hold off.
Yeah. So anyway, if you didn't know already, I'm Mothman, and I'm joined by the big umbrella of lies himself, Devin. How are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I am also doing great. Just a few little house cleaning pieces, right? Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. Subscribe. It's a way for other people to find us when they search American Gods, or maybe they search Twin Peaks, which we are going to be covering this week. 4 episodes are out and streaming. We'll have pretty timely editions out as well, and we're very excited. Also, we're on all the social media. We're on Patreon. So anyway, if you like us, bare minimum, tell someone about us. That is probably the best way to support us right now. But before we get into the content about the show, we like to warm everyone up with a few chuckles and cover a few news stories. So let's get to the news. I'm going to go ahead and start if that's okay, Devin.
Yeah.
All right. So
buddy.
I think you're going to be pretty excited about this one. Sony Pictures just announced they will be casting Tom Hardy as Venom in the Spider-Man spin-off movie. How do you feel about that?
I love Tom Hardy. That dude can do no wrong. No wrong at all.
Yeah, he has a lot of good films, and we actually just covered Taboo, which is the last thing he was in, and I'm not a huge fan of the show. It had a lot of issues, but it was, well acted, visually was really cool, they got the time period pretty right, but it's still just kind of worth it for Tom Hardy, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's also interesting to me that it's going to be kind of a connected universe to the Marvel universe, but they're not going to really try to tie anything in. That way Sony can do its own thing with its spin-offs. Marvel can do its own thing with its other universe. But what's interesting is I looked up who's directing it, and I didn't recognize the name, but I actually have seen a few of his movies. His name is Ruben Fleischer. He did Zombieland. I think he did 30 Seconds or Less. Both of those were pretty good. But this is his only big movie other than Gangster Squad, which isn't saying much because do you even remember that movie?
I didn't watch it.
No, so here's the crazy thing. It didn't get a whole lot of publicity because it actually contains a scene where a gangster goes in and with a Tommy gun, shoots full a theater of people. And this was going to come out right around the time that the Colorado movie theater shooting happened. So they just postponed it, randomly stuck it into the first quarter of next year with not much publicity. So anyway, it just didn't do well because of that. So at this point, giving the star power of Tom Hardy and the star power of Venom, because a lot of people think Venom's a cool character, as long as someone doesn't put on blackface and black body and start fighting crime in real life, I think it's going to be a big movie.
Yeah, I think as long as you don't do the emo Venom thing either.
Oh yeah, you don't do the mask scene
good.
where you go into a bar and start dancing and you're just a badass.
Yeah, throw on a little black eyeliner.
Yeah, that's just me every day, brother. So what have you read in the news, my friend?
So I was a little blown away, and I felt like this was about as real as vindication as any gamer can ever get. So recently, Blizzard came up with a new kind of a transaction system where you can basically cross currencies within games with tokens that you can actually purchase. So for a game like World of Warcraft, if someone doesn't want to grind and get a whole bunch of gold, they can buy tokens. It's kind of that free-to-play kind of thing. You got your little free app, but you throw $1 in and that'll give you lives or whatever.
Okay.
So
kind of microtransactions, right?
Yes, basically. Okay. And then so you could sit there and give your cash, and then that would skip and give you cash inside the currency. Well, they announced today, or a couple days ago, that you can actually start using your in-game gold tokens to actually purchase other Blizzard stuff. So they announced that it seems kind of small until you start to realize that Blizzard's been partnering up with a new, little itty bitty game company called Activision. And Activision has a very big game coming out, Destiny 2. So it turns out that the gamers that have been mining gold like crazy for the last 10 years that this game's been out can now use their in-game gold to buy a brand new Destiny game. No cash out of their pocket.
Oh, that is... Okay, so I'm gonna respond to this as if I'm an old grandpa. You ready?
Yep.
So are you saying that I could buy like a Power Rangers gun and use it in the Transformers games?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
No. And you know what else this means? It means every single time it's like, why do you sit around and why are you playing games all day? It's like, well, now I'm earning something for it, bitch.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Jesus, get off my back. I'm making
Come
a living.
at me, bro.
Right. Cool. So there's one other story I'd like to cover, and then we'll get into the episode this week. But pretty interesting news. So Russell Crowe, I don't know if you knew this, but he was actually the first choice for Wolverine.
No.
So yeah, Russell Crowe was the first choice from Wolverine, according to the pedophile and director Bryan Singer. If you're confused about the pedophile reference, do a search. It's kind of disturbing. Anyway, multiple lawsuits. Yeah. He's not Bill Cosby level, but it doesn't look good. Anyway, he was his first choice, but Russell Crowe turned it down. Now, why do you think someone would turn a role like that down?
I mean, I can only speculate. He's got a bit of what's the phrase? I'm blanking out now. He's got a little bit of there's an idea about him that he likes to be super aggressive and violent. Maybe that would just reinforce it. Russell Crowe fighting around the world.
Okay, that's a good one. The other one might be like, especially, we're talking, this is the original X-Men movie, so this isn't new.
Yeah.
I don't even think that perception around Russell Crowe existed yet, right? So this also could have just been, hey, I think superheroes are dumb, and and they're not art. And now, of course, not only they're blockbuster successes, but a lot of them are critically acclaimed. No, it's not a reason any of us ever would have guessed. It is because he didn't want to be typecast as the wolf-liking guy. Is because I guess he had a partner in the beginning of Gladiator that was a wolf, and there's a centerpiece scene with a wolf, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I will give context, and I'll read a quote. Still fucking stupid, but the excuse was that I guess the partnership with the wolf in the beginning of Gladiator in the script originally was a much bigger part, almost like a buddy movie, but with a wolf. Mm-hmm. It didn't end up that way, but this was his quote. So I said no, because I didn't want to be Wolfie the General and then Wolfie the other bloke. Like, now I'm Mr. Wolfman. I can only do movies that have something to do with wolves. That's my Russell Crowe impersonation. So anyway, that was the news. Let's move seamlessly into summing it up with a tweet.
Oh yeah, we're summing it up, summing it up, summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up, summing it up, summing it up and up. Tweet.
All right, summing it up in a tweet. So I'm going to attempt to sum up this week's episode, although it's really about kind of, I don't know. Here it is. Just tell me what you think, okay?
Okay.
Origin of the affair, the death and resurrection, casual meaningless sex, decrepitude and decay, love at first death, and a fiery reunion.
Bravo.
You're clapping. It's not
Bravo.
Not funny at all. And I was struggling because
beautiful.
No, yeah, right. Normally, all I do is just. I do what the segment's called. I sum it up in a tweet and try to maybe make it funny. I usually don't do the rhyming, but then I'm like, well, how do you sum it up? It's really just, before she cheated on him. So anyway, I basically said the same thing 3 different ways, but that's where I'm at. I don't think mine's very good, but
You're sure as shit makes mine sound terrible.
Does it?
I think it was bravo poetry.
All right, go for it.
Go off book to find real magic. Don't fuck with Anubis. Drop the Git Gone. Shadow just needs to get good. Are we supposed to believe Dane Cook's dick is that big?
Right. Once you, oh god, that is my favorite thing. When I'm watching it, I remember thinking like, I know Dane Cook's in the show. When is he going to show up? Like I've just thought that at some point, and then I heard his voice, and then once I realized it was the best friend, I was like, what? That's not Dane Cook's dick. I bet he wrote that into the contracts that they had to make it look that big.
He can only play one character. He can only play one character, and
Pretty much.
We can bitch about him later.
Yeah, we'll bitch about him later because that was something. Okay, yeah, so I want to specifically ask you about a comment you made last week where you were saying, I want to talk about this. If they're doing it, I don't know why they do it this late. I don't know that it would even make sense or work. Yada, yada, yada. You had to be super vague because you weren't spoiling anything. Are you able to give more detail and explain that now?
Yeah, the big event, so the big reveal would be what I was wondering why they skipped it was her saving him from the, after the frogman. So, because at the time, he just kind of snapped out of it and everyone died and exploded. And
you're like, why?
See, that was the night that she saved him from being hung. That's when she walks to the actual hotel. And that's where they talk for the first time. So that's really early on. So it was quite confusing for me to sit there and be like, well, why did they skip that? Now they kind of filled the gaps. They're being a little tricksy with the editing.
So we saw the faceless kind of people and almost Clockwork Orange get-ups type thing. It's kind of like a Clockwork Orange Droog mixed with a Silent Hill nurse, right?
With a little colonial revolutionary thrown in there too.
Yeah, right. Anyway, she like shreds them. My favorite one is when she kicks one in the ass and the spine and skull pop out.
Yes.
And there's just like blood raining down. It's so over the top. And one of the things...
So good.
Right? So good. And one of the things I really like about this show is that it kind of jumps between genres and feels... seamlessly, right? So I think about shows we've covered, Ash vs. Evil Dead, like, you're expecting gore every single episode. It's got a kind of formula to it you expect, and that's obviously one of the things they're trying to do with this is push the boundaries on storytelling, experiment new ways of telling it, try to adapt what the book did, but it's a very different medium, and we've talked about how they're not maybe doing it the most successfully, but I will give them kudos. Every episode is unique, and when it goes to like gore fest out of nowhere, and then you know we'll see it for 2 episodes, like I think that's a very, I don't know, I think that's a cool concept.
Well, I think they really are experimenting with, we deal with such a pacing. Most of the stuff we watch and the content we get nowadays has to have like kind of an even pacing to it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The storytelling's got to have a linear, at least trajectory. Obviously you're going to have climaxes and stories, and then you're going to kind of go back and forth to build cinematic effect. But so far, this show has been so uneven that I've almost like was put off by it. And I don't think it was until watching this episode that I went, actually, this is kind of a strength. Is that when you are expecting something, you're not going to get it. You're going to get something completely else. And
but at the same time, there's also this kind of unspoken promise that you're also going to get answers. It's just going to take a little longer.
Right. Well, the thing that I liked about this episode is that when I mean uneven, I mean the first half of the episode it could be its own standalone movie, kind of your own little modern romance. There was nothing mythical about it, and it was actually really very, very strong. I was blown away by how good this episode was, and to sit there and go from this kind of romance drama with such complexities of Laura's character to then turning into a zombie superhero gore fest. It just, I mean, it happened within one scene, and it just, and yeah, sure, I know I'm watching American Gods, but there wasn't a transition. It was just kind of seamless, like you were saying. I just haven't seen that happen before. It was very cool.
I actually didn't even think about that, the fact that if you actually cut the episode up, because to me, it's a linear show, but it's also an artsy show, so it's not that linear. And even though each episode's kind of like start to finish, they throw some stuff in there. They're not playing with, timelines like in a Westworld way, right? But in my mind, I think about like it's just the origin. Now we understand what happens, and it's odd that immediately what struck my mind was origin, because ultimately these are like, superheroes, right? Superhero-esque. I mean, gods, that's what superheroes are, kind of like gods amongst men, right? Made flesh, like Jesus is with muscles. But, to kind of see them switch gears so much, because you're right, the first 30 minutes is like romantic drama. It's like, he's a grifter, and then they fall in love, and then she's like burnt out at work and wanting to maybe take advantage of them because she feels they've taken advantage of her, and it's the perfect plan, and you're still kind of buying it even though you know how it ends. But there's also a level of like, wait, did she fuck him over? Like, did she sell him out? And anyway,
her portrayal too, and I've never really been a ginormous Emily Browning fan.
No, I love Emily Browning.
I've actually worked with her directly. I've been on set with her for Sucker Punch for a while, and granted, that doesn't mean we had one-on-one, but
you guys were besties.
Yeah, we were best friends. We just hung out and had coffee all together all the time.
Did you order frappes?
Unicorn frappes.
No, those didn't exist. I know you're bullshitting me.
Well, when you're celebrities, they get stuff beforehand. No, actually, being on set with Zack Snyder is horrible. He's the coolest dude on the planet, but he's a health nut. And usually when you're on set for like 16 hours a day, they have craft services jam-packed with just donuts and sugar and stuff, because you need something at 4 o'clock in the morning to be like, dude, I need either I'm going to pass out in the rafters right now, or I need some carbohydrates.
Sure.
And Zack Snyder has nothing. Oatmeal at best. Oatmeal and club soda. But, I've always seen her kind of stuff as having that kind of quiet, action-y stuff, which came out okay with Sucker Punch. And so I never really saw her having the reins that she had in this episode, which I thought.
And I'll say, like, I loved her as like a child actor, like just from the original series of Unfortunate Events. But then I'm looking at it, and the next movie I saw was Sucker Punch, which I enjoyed as a visual like experiment and fun, with a plot that was interesting enough and like mind-bending enough, but also had holes. And I wasn't looking for like Oscar acting, but I mean, it also would have been great if it added that layer. So I don't think I really even made a judgment, right? Like me seeing her in this movie, it's like, oh, it's just someone that's been in 2 movies that I enjoyed. All right, let's give it a shot. But I was also impressed because she is in my mind, wholly unique personality. She's very like logical and rational, and at the same time like knows what she's doing. She's wrong, but still just like making the decision to do it. Like, I don't know, it's definitely an interesting role.
I literally think she kind of, she's making Wednesday compete now, because I think she could actually submit this to the Academy and probably be a contender for performance awards, because the complexity of her character arcs. You were at first thinking, well, this is just some kind of rom-com at the beginning, but now you're getting really, really interesting depths of depression, and you can't tell at first whether it's just a nihilistic, I always screw up the pronunciation there, but can't tell whether if it's nihilist or super manic. You can't tell. And there's a fine line between that, which seems weird to say, But she rocked it. Like, it was so hard to sit there and tell what her mind was actually thinking, if she was just kind of going in it. I just thought it worked really well. And it was like the first time, like we've been watching Shadow going, what's your point? And this was the first episode that I've been able to say he has a point and it works. His character worked for the first time. Without needing Wednesday to save the scene.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he still isn't the most compelling character, but just he works well playing off of other people. I what's so interesting to me in general, just you talked about the Academy, is like this wouldn't qualify because it's TV, but you're getting so much TV now that's like the high art that used to be just found in cinema, right? You know, like TV used to be low budget fare. That's not the case anymore. So I mean, you've kind of seen. I don't really care about too much about award shows. I do like to see the results, just kind of as ideas of what to maybe try out of them in a dry spell. But otherwise, there's no issues finding great stuff nowadays. So I do wonder if in that atmosphere of awards and all that bullshit, if the Emmys are escalating as an award show just because TV is such high esteem, especially fictional TV. Most of the Emmys you think about would have been like broadcasting and news and that type of stuff. So anyway,
well, I think Netflix and the streaming sites, they are able to get away and do so much more that you're almost not losing stuff in editing like you'd get with some of these cable television shows. So
you're right. Yeah, and what's crazy is like, so for example, and Foxman and I are going to actually podcast about it, but I'm going to watch, we're going to talk about Alien Covenant, which I saw, and I'm not going to give opinions here, go tune in for that, but they did some prequel stuff online, and it's been told that this is a, very much a cut, and it also included these prequels, so when it's all said and done, like the uncut version may be a 3-hour movie, and to me, almost like like if they put everything together in that, like it could be giant, right? At the same time, I wonder, would it have played better with the mindset of just doing a 3 or 4 episode hour-long miniseries, and instead of trimming fat, you just expose it, right? And I'm not saying it would have, like, maybe even 3 hours, like, would be stretching what they tried to accomplish there, but I do think of just the difference in freedom you have there. And there's an interesting, since you bring up Netflix, I'm just going to tell a very quick news story that I almost covered as a news bit, but it was more complex and not as easy to joke about. But there's a new Netflix original movie called Okja or something like that. I'm probably getting it wrong. And it was at the Cannes Film Festival, and Tilda Swinton actually is producing it, and it's from this director that, did you ever see The Host, the Korean giant monster movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Long time ago.
Yeah, so that got critical acclaim, got overseas stuff. That was ages ago. But that director is the same dude that's doing a Netflix original movie now. So his name's Bong Joon-ho. Sorry, I had to look it up. He did Snowpiercer most recently, which was also a lot of fun. Did you see Snowpiercer?
No, and it's on my list to see it, and it's one of those ones I just never hit play for some weird reason, and I know I totally should. Between
The Host and Snowpiercer, and there's other movies I've heard good things about but not watched, he's an A in my book. Anyway, he premieres this movie at Cannes, and when the Netflix logo comes up, you get nothing but like boos and disdain, because this is Netflix's first appearance at Cannes, and like all these people are like trying to be dicks about a streaming service putting out a movie, and they even instituted rules for next year that if a movie isn't playing in at least this amount of theaters in this amount of time, it can't be shown, like as a protest against streaming networks, as if they're hurting the art. Meanwhile, this director is raving about not being told to make a single cut by any producer, getting complete creative freedom, and getting a budget he never would have had. So like, it's nothing but all the right things for this artist, and whether you like the film or not, I don't know, but in terms of this artist truly expressing himself without limits, this is a better form than he's dealt with, And meanwhile, at an arts festival, we're like being pretentious douches.
No, and that's the thing. It has nothing to do with saving art. If it was saving art, I'm just going to call bullshit because I'd go in an hour on a tirade against that. What it is that it's literally challenging the pocketbook of the norm. That's what it is. We had a formula to succeed and at least break even on projects, and right now it's kind of throwing a wrench in that same matrix of gears. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, real quick, I'll play devil's advocate because here's the thing: the people in those audiences, a lot of them are also like huge just fans that show up. It's not like it's just the producers and the money men in this industry. So the other thing that my mind goes to is maybe people think about profits in a streaming service like Netflix and a streaming service, like Spotify or Apple Music, and they think, I have to get tons and tons of views to even make what I would like. I could go, play in a local theater and pack the house for a weekend and make more than I would make on Netflix in 3 months. But I think the perception is colored by putting your film there after it's already been made and financed completely separately, right? I think it's a very different perspective to say, and ultimately, Netflix is going to treat everyone equally, right? We're going to pay this for this many films, this for this many films from these companies, and these are our payout structures. Done deal. I'm not considering this director or this director. If they're going to give you a check and produce the movie and make the partnership and do it from the beginning to the end, when they're actually in control of those things, that to me is what matters more from an ethical standpoint. If I was in that audience and I was a maker of films, I would just be like, maybe I should just see if they'll help me make my next film.
It does. It's the perfect marketplace for filmmaking, in my opinion. I mean, I've seen, just from work coming in for my company, I've seen my number of films and television shows diminish dramatically over the last 2 years, but my Netflix projects has gone way up. And it's not chaotic type jobs. Yeah. It's decent kind of money that comes with it too. And it's because they've got the perfect marketplace with the economies of scale. You know what I mean? I mean, they're now creating content for the actual fans. And they have the ability to actually track and have your metrics and statistics and figure out who likes what and what they're watching. Yeah. It's not a kick it out to ABC and then wait for the Neiman ratings or whatever, the Nelson ratings come in and tell them. Neiman. I'm trying to think what Neiman... Anyway. So for me, when you start to really want to cater to fans, you get to that point like Alien where you can do the cut for, the big box office numbers. But for a while, we've been doing this forever. I mean, they were doing the director's cuts of, Blade Runner, Lord of the Rings, Godzilla, or not Godzilla, King Kong, because the fans want those longer cuts. But
some of them are like the original cut, and the studio says let's trim the fat. And some of them are literally what's so cool to me is some of these have happened now that DVDs and home video, forget streaming, with Blu-ray and DVD, directors were saying, "Shit, I can recut the film easily on a computer to be the way I originally submitted it, and the fans can see it." And no one cares. But they can repackage my shit and maybe make a few more bucks. They'll be glad to do it. That in itself was a cool revolution for fandom,
And it does. It caters to the people who want it. And I think that was a nice stepping stone. But Netflix takes that step out where you go, okay, someone wants to see someone wants to watch Blade Runner again, right? But they don't want to drop the $30 on a Blu-ray or a DVD. Well, if it's just getting submitted to Netflix and Netflix is streaming it, well, damn it. It's it's there, it's ready. You can hit the fans, and it's benefiting from economies of scale because they're able to get so many people shoved into one thing versus all these distribution networks vying for, shelf space where you can buy an old DVD. You know what I mean? And it's the technology of streaming is getting so much better to get these higher resolutions while digital media is just dead. So I do think it's a grand disruptor, and I think that's probably making the academies and a bunch of people who don't know how to, maybe cater to that new market. I'm sure I don't think they boo it. I just think there tends to be just a hesitation to jump into new territory.
Yeah.
It's in my mind, it's a weakness. Just roll with it and turn it in, figure out how to honor the new way.
I'm going to say one other thing that thought triggered, but we have to discuss it because we have another segment, and then we could probably talk more about American Gods. But
yes,
one thing we were just talking, we kind of touched upon special features, extended cuts, this, that, and the other. I think Netflix should get on that wagon. I don't know why they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that when I stream a movie, there's not special features, but I saw something promising in that they had some kind of monster, the Metallica documentary, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And if I see something on there I already like, even if I'm not going to watch it, I usually just rate it, just to, kind of give to the common good. And I noticed it said season. I'm like, season? Weird. So I clicked on it, and it was just 2 episodes, the original one, and then I guess a mini documentary that was like a follow-up a decade later that is now part of the Blu-ray release, and otherwise you can get on a website. I was like, so this is the first time I've basically seen a special feature, and they obviously don't have this as part of like their process or deal making, because it just, the only way they could even convey it in the UI was to say, oh, it's a season of 1.5 episodes. But anyway, tell Netflix to stop fucking around with the rating system with thumbs up and thumbs down, and just to add special features.
Oh, that's so bad.
And things like that. And with this note, I promise we're going to talk about American Gods more. But first, Mike is going to talk about American Gods more as the preacher in I May Be Mistaken.
Preacher don't preach.
And now, here's Mike.
Hello, welcome to another edition of I May Be Mistaken. I'm your host, as always, Mike the Philosopher, and let's jump right in. So this week we're going to talk about Bilquis, she of the man-eating vagina in American Gods. But she's going to be better known to most of us as the Queen of Sheba. Like, that's a name I think most of us would be familiar with, at least. And the name Bilquis is actually really important because it's a representation of her Arabic name. And Arabia is actually where she's credited with being from historically, in so much as there's a historical record of Bilquis, i.e. the Queen of Sheba. And she is closely tied to the story of King Solomon in the Bible, but probably better recognized and more fully developed in Islamic traditions and her appearances in the Quran, which give her a little bigger story, I guess. And it bears out because Sheba is traditionally associated with the Arabic Saba, and it would make more sense for the Islamic tradition to have a bigger story on somebody who was from that region. But historically speaking, the evidence of her actual being, and I'm doing air quotes right there, is it's highly questionable. I mean, there's nothing really solid, but it's not uncompelling. Recent excavations in an area known to have been the centerpiece of that kingdom of Saba have actually dug up this temple of Bilquis. Like, it's still I think in the stages of being excavated, and that's really interesting because it kind of gives a little bit of historical weight to the fact that she might have actually been a person and not just a story. But more importantly, it's in Ethiopia where she played a role. Because there she's said to be the mother of the founding father of Ethiopia, who was the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And what's really interesting for you, for any Indiana Jones fans out there, is she's tied directly to the story of the Ark of the Covenant being brought into Ethiopia by her son. And that's a pretty cool little tie-in, right? There's some minor references to her being a demon. Nothing I could substantiate. So I'm a little shy to go in and say that Gaiman was able to draw on these specific things when he gave her these otherworldly abilities, i.e., swallowing people through her vagina, which has really led to some fascinating scenes in this season of American Gods. that's again, I think I've spoken of it before. That's like the genius of Gaiman. He's taken these, marginal legends and turned them into like mainstream characters here and given them these powers or aspects that maybe we haven't traditionally given them or that they weren't associated with. But I think because they are marginal characters and we don't know so much about them, it works out so well. Like you don't question the fact that she's able to do these things or that she's some kind of goddess. So it's just really cool. And I look forward to more of these characters because anybody familiar with the book will know there's plenty more to come. And I look forward to discussing it with you. See you next time, buddies. Peace.
Preacher don't preach.
Hey there, little buddies. Does the state of the world leave you in despair and make you want to leave this world only to try out another one? Well, you don't have to wait 50 years for Elon Musk to colonize Mars. You can step into another world right now with Audible. That's right. With Audible, you can go to any foreign world you want with classic authors such as H.G. Wells, Philip K. Dick, George Orwell, and many, many more. And just when you finish one book and become depressed and have to confront the harsh reality that you live in, well, that's when you realize there's 180,000 more titles to choose from. So go to audibletrial.com/Boob Tube Buddies to try it free for 30 days. You'll be doing yourself a favor, and I guarantee you won't regret it. Nor will your fragile psyche. And we're back. Hope you enjoyed that sweet Am I Myth Taken segment from Mike and that awesome Blue Apron and or Audible ad. That's a good generic brand. I just did that so now if I ever forget to actually bring us back in, I have that to paste in. I mean, I guess if it's also my... Anyway, I just...
You are an expert. Yeah. A master.
So what I'd like to ask you about is we see... It's Anubis, right? God of Death, dog god?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We see Anubis, who we've seen take the old lady that was making soup up to the stairway. She gets pushed in by her bitch of a cat. And we see kind of a similar thing, but with his wife after the car wreck, which we get some graphic detail. Like, we actually get to see the blowjob kind of happening. And then I guess, I don't understand how she caused a wreck. She switched it into neutral, and then the guy automatically was a magnet drawn into killing them.
I just think he was a dumbass.
But they made it look like they kind of made it look like her. That's what bugged me. Is her head hits the gear and switch it into a gear, and then they die.
I didn't notice.
Yeah,
I totally didn't notice that.
Hits the gear, and it's like, and then her eyes widen, very much implying she killed them, because she's such an exaggerated fellatio person. That's anyway. And I don't think it ever would make any possible sense. Like, there's a car on one side of the road, you're on another side of the road. I don't understand what could... neutral, it would just stay there. Reverse, it would start... anyway.
It'd have to be just distracted driving. I didn't even notice it. Now we're going to have to... Now this will be like Ask for Evil Dead. Now we got to go back and check it.
But we won't. We won't. And then we'll pretend you should have as an audience, as if your employee's here. Anyway, she dies. She goes there. And then she just it's like, fuck you, man. I don't want to do this. And then she just blasts away. Was there any more context in the novel? Or is that like a wait and see type of thing?
So here's the cool thing about this episode. This is entirely off book.
Oh,
none of this happens.
Fuck.
So besides Laura coming in and saving Shadow, this is all strictly, written in. And so the thing I was curious
where the fuck did they get off? 4 episodes in, they're just making up their own shit. Sorry.
The whole episode. And we can't... Now, who's to say whether or not that's the strength or the weakness? I think this is why this episode ended up going so good. I know this is going to make me sound like a heretic right now, but I don't think Neil had much writing on this one. I think the 2 directors on the show, which you can actually watch after the credits if you stream it, They do a little breakdown where they talk about the writing. It very much was they were kind of given free reign. They're like, okay, we don't have any content for this, so let's see what we can do with it. And I think they did a fucking awesome job. Although it didn't feel like Neil's writing. Do you think?
I'm not the best person to tell you like if it's like his writing or not, because all my reading of Neil Gaiman has been from comics. I've never actually read a Neil Gaiman novel, so it's a very different tone, like prose versus that. I mean, it has some hallmarks of him, but I couldn't really tell. This episode specifically is written by just the two people directing, because I read somewhere that I guess he's going to write like 3 episodes, but I just don't know which one they were, and I would be like, that'd be funny if he was just the dude that actually wrote the episode, you know? Or I don't know, maybe he's just part of like writers' meetings and said, well, if you're going to do it, like maybe that would make sense if you did this, blah 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 blah. So anyway,
well, I mean, if he's written, he probably is going to do the season premiere and probably season finale, which we're getting pretty close to the finale already. Because was this episode 4 or 5?
This is 4.
This is 4. Well, this season's only 8, so we are halfway through the season already. Really, we're like a quarter of the way through the book. No, not even, like a fifth. So this big event that I've been mostly excited for, I don't think is even going to happen in this season.
That's awesome.
I mean, it bums me out because I want to. That's the one thing that I'm like, been like, God damn it, I want to see this.
Yeah, but like if they can close out the season 1 and it'd be good, then it's just like, man, I know season 2 is gonna be good.
Did you notice there was little Easter eggs throughout this episode that were really kind of cool? Did you notice the crows following her throughout the episode?
I didn't.
Yeah. So from now we know Odin's crows, they're following the whole time.
Odin has
so
crows?
That's a big staple. Yeah, totally does. They're that should be in myth taken.
Maybe it has been. I don't know. I just stopped listening because all the fucking spoilers.
I do gotta say how much I love the cats in this show so far. There's cats kind of everywhere. We're gonna keep seeing cats more, but I just thought it was so funny because the last episode when the cat pushed it in, I immediately thought cats are jerks.
Yeah.
It was in Robot Chicken, where it was just a whole bunch of intercuts of cats tripping people downstairs or pushing things on people's heads.
Absolutely. So, overall, this is such a weird episode to me, because we're going to wrap it up soon here, in that it's the most linear and set up and narrow episode yet. So every other episode, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think every other episode has had a vignette or two that are not connected to what's going on and have otherwise no relevance whatsoever. And so what bothers me about this episode is, wouldn't it make more sense to show the context and relationship of them along the way, instead of showing me at this point 2 sex scenes with the goddess and the space cock and all that, which has otherwise barred none on the plot. And like, right? Because we've at least seen Anubis twice, so he makes sense now. Nancy makes no sense. So I like this. What upsets me almost is like, why is it that this is mostly our favorite episode, and yet it's all the other ones are doing the exact opposite. Like I'm worried that this trend won't continue, but otherwise I really liked it. The whole zombification part I thought was like hilarious. Her finding her friend, like that side of it, where like they actually have to talk about it. That was my favorite part of the episode, other than the gore scene at the end, was just them having to deal with it and be honest, and like that was gold.
Yeah. What's her name? It's what was her friend's name in the show? This is where I suck.
Audrey?
Audrey, yeah.
Okay.
If we recall, I said I didn't like her portrayal in the first episode.
Yeah.
And then this whole episode, I'm like, this works. I'm like, her portrayal in this episode was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if there's, I mean, is there a, I mean, I guess the question is, what portrayal are you going to like about, like, a sobbing widow trying to bang on her ex's grave and, like, spit cum on it? Right. So, I mean, probably not, I don't know. I mean, I guess you really would need to be considered for an award from the Academy, even though you don't qualify, if you're able to pull that off. So she's no Robert De Niro, or Meryl Streep, rather, right?
Right. I'm with you. I absolutely adored this episode. I think it's worth to go back and rewatching. I mean, I called out early on being a little concerned that they were shoving so many of these side stories with the Coming to America and Somewhere in America. They're in the books, obviously, but they're limited, and they've shoved a whole bunch in these first 3 episodes. And then not this one at all. So in 3 episodes, they've done, a quarter of the book's worth. So, I was concerned from the get-go that are they just going to write new Coming to America stories? Is that where Neil Gaiman stuff's going to come in? Because he had a plethora of them. Like the new version of the book had more to it with that.
While we're talking, I looked at the writing credits per episode, and now that they've all come out, I don't see them. So I don't know if someone was like, I don't know if IMDb isn't specific enough. Maybe it's like from an interview, and Neil said, I sat at the writer's table on these 3 episodes and provided input. Like, I don't know, but pretty much just seems like his credits on every episode is the creator of everyone, and that's just not it. But I would love to see him write one, kind of like George R. R. Martin's written a Game of Thrones episode or 2. Robert Kirkman's written some Walking Dead. And it always proves to at least be interesting, even if it's not like a direct adaptation, just to see what they're doing.
I think I'd be remiss if we didn't point out. Did you follow up at all with some of the articles from the last episode about the sex scene of the last episode? So it kind of shocked the internet for a day. We had talked about how it was definitely above and beyond what we'd ever kind of seen before, but it hit so many websites that even it was on the front page of Breitbart
Crazy.
for the better part of a day. And now the comment section of Breitbart was definitely not worth reading. But I just thought it was funny that we both called out that was should be considered revolutionary a scene.
Yeah, and
the gay sex sure scene, enough, it was.
Breitbart's like, the gay Muslim propaganda is going to be taking over our interwebs and our brain tubes. That's kind of my Alex Jones impersonation.
That's exactly what it was.
At this point, I'm hoping you're good to tie a bow on this bitch, because I think we've wrapped it all up.
Yeah, wrap it up.
You gotta say the bin line. Jesus Christ, man.
Good golly.
I'm gonna get you cue cards next time.
Well, I could say here and tell everyone thank you for listening, and be sure to hit up our subscribe you see, nope, I'm gonna screw it up. If you can throw $1 onto the Patreon, we'd appreciate it. It's obviously not required, but one of the things that I would appreciate the most, and I'm sure every one of us would really like, is that if you can give it a listen, give it a share, send it off to one of your buddies, send it off to one of your friends, and have them hear it and share it off themselves. Definitely add your comments to any, add to the conversation. We love hearing from you guys, and we want to, have a little more involvement there. How's that for cue cards?
That is still not what I was looking for, which is just we'll see you next time, little buddies. But I'm going to go ahead and say thanks, Mike, because we always love your segments, and we really appreciate you. But without further ado, we'll see you next time, little buddies. Jesus.
Bye.